Okay. The third thing is looking at your competitors and then beat them. You can do it on any medium, any channel. Think about bandit signs. How do you beat somebody at bandit signs? How can you beat somebody at bandit signs? Well, you can put more out. You can put them out more consistently, and you can have different messages. You can have different color bandit signs. All those things will affect your response rate. So that's how I approach marketing, right? So be purposeful, be methodical, have differentiation, be different than your competitors. Start with the end in mind. What am I going to learn here? What do I want to accomplish?
You are now listening to the Your First Steps podcast. It's great to talk about $1 million dreams, but where do we start? How do we get there? Listen up as you hear directly from real estate industry leaders on how they reached success in their fields. And most importantly, what were their first steps? Let's get this party started. Here's your host, Eli the Real Estate Guy.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Thank y'all so much for tuning in to the very first episode of the Your First Steps podcast. I am Eli, the Real Estate Guy, and on this podcast, what we talk about is real estate and entrepreneurship, and I could not have thought of a better person to have on this very first episode than Josh Deshong. So, Josh, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks so much, Eli, man. It's great to be here. I'm happy to chat with you today.
Awesome. Yeah, so for the few people that may not have heard of you or your businesses before, kind of give a brief intro of some of the things, who you are and some of the things that you've done.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Josh. I've been in the space for the real estate space for 15 years. I started at 18 as a real estate broker with Keller Williams, a real estate agent, actually. And started off just selling homes, man, and but I got in, and 15 years ago was 2006, right? So 2006, right before the housing crash. So it was impeccable timing, my man. So started as a real estate agent, and in 2012 I started buying fix and flip houses, and then started focusing more on wholesaling, and now some technology. We built a marketplace for wholesaling. So all in all, I've done over 1,000 flip transactions, 2,000 wholesale actually probably close to 3,000 now wholesale transactions for around 10,000 units in volume. Nice. So I love real estate. It's like the only thing I know, my man.
There you go. Awesome. I love it, man. And I'll kind of give you for the people that's listening, I'll kind of explain what led to this conversation. So it was, last week, I believe it was. My sister-in-law, she's been saying that she wants to get into wholesaling, and she's seeing what me and my wife are doing because we've been wholesaling for a few years, and she's kind of seen our success in that. And so from there, I wrote a book called Wholesaling 101, Your First Steps, and it's showing people how to get that first deal. And I gave her the book, explained everything to her. But when she saw about how much cold calling she had to do and how much texting she had to do, she's like, let me see if I could find another way to find a deal. And so then she sent me, a link to this app. And I'm like, what is this app that you're talking about? And she's like, it's a Trelly app. It's like an off-market app. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I've never heard of this before. And so she's showing me this, and I'm just scrolling through, and I'm seeing like all these, potential deals. And the biggest issue I feel that happens now as you're on buyer's list is all the deals that I get sent, they're not deals, right? All the numbers are off. And so I saw that, and there was a showing the next day. And so I went and I met with someone named Angelina, met her at the house. And I was just telling her how much I just enjoyed the app. I went into the different markets, looking at different homes. I'm like, man, this is amazing. How old is this thing? Who did it? What is this? And so, one thing led to another, and that's how this conversation came about. So we'll get into Trelly, the app, but I wanted to first get an idea for what's your story, like what's your background, where you came from. And so when we go back to, I guess the 80s, or what were you born?
Yeah, 88, man.
88. Okay, got you. So let's just go back to say 5, 6 year old, Josh. How was it like growing up in the Deshong household, and what influenced you to do these things?
Yeah, man. All right. So this is an interesting story. So grab your popcorn. No, I was born and raised in Dallas. I was raised by my single mother, who is like my best friend. I'm a textbook mama's boy. No, she and I I grew up in watching her actually as a career woman and as a professional go out and push herself. My mother was in sales, and so I got to learn how to talk to people, how to cold call, and all those things, watching her, firsthand. And went through some, as I got into my teen years, I became a little hard-headed, a little stubborn, I guess. And so I was difficult to deal with. I started getting into trouble at a young age. I went off to various boys' homes and different places to like get me back on the right track. So I get back into Dallas. I'm 15, 16 years old. I decide that, I need to do something with my life. You only get one. So you need to push and do something special, do something worth doing. So I actually left high school before the age of 18. I got out of high school. I was 17, and I went and immediately took my GED, and I enrolled in college. And shortly after all of that actually happened, my mother lost her job, and I had I was working 2 part-time jobs, not making enough to actually live on. So I figured, all right, now is the time that if I'm going to support us and support my family, now is the time to do it. So I was reading a Dallas Business Journal one day, and it was talked about, and this was in this would have been 05, 06, and it was like how great residential real estate was. Like, little did they know what was coming, but it was talking about the residential real estate space and what real estate agents were able to make and what real estate brokers were making. And I just remember being like, wow. And I was in the computers. I was really into computers as a kid. And so when I was 13, I actually sat for a test, a certification called A+ certification. So I was really, really good into computers. And once I got into real estate, I kind of used my experience with computers to attract customers. I got in, I started digital marketing before digital marketing was really a thing in real estate. I picked up a phone and I started cold calling nonstop. It was so funny, right? I was going to people's houses. I was 18 years old. I was going to their houses, never, bought and paid for my own car, much less a house, right? So it was kind of an intimidating journey, but by the time I turned 18, I got licensed. I used my experience to build different websites, different ad campaigns. I remember at one point we used to be able to find buyers from posting houses on Craigslist. So like home buyers, like, nice. Tom and Susie want to buy a house to live in, and they came from Craigslist. It was like, that was an actual source way back when, right? So I started cold calling through the years, did really well, got into short stuff.
Not like hand, finger to phone.
So at one point I had 2 phones on my desk. And I had one in, and I would dial a number, and I'd start dialing it on the other one, and I have 2 phones, and each boom, and I just hang up whichever one was still ringing, So, right. Yeah, that was it was 100 dials a day in the very beginning was my goal. Gotcha. So if it was anything less than 100 dials, I wasn't going home. So, but yeah, in 2012, I was sitting down with a mentor who said, Josh, you need to invest in either assets or a product, and I had this business that was helping people buy and sell homes, but the way it was explained to me, it was, Josh, this is a services business. This is you're doing a service for people, and that's great, but it's going to be hard to scale. If you want to build something that's national, services businesses tend to have a longer growth curve. And so, he said assets or products, and I didn't know anything about products. And, at the time that just felt like I'd just go and invent something. So I just started buying houses. So within a month of that mentor telling me to invest in assets or product, I bought 2 houses and then 30 the following year.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah,
Nice.
that's
Very nice. So what do you feel was the that changing point of where you got those first couple and then it went to 30? So was it basically do it the same thing over and over again, or what changed from that first year to the second year?
It was okay. So that first deal, there is, I still look back at this and think this is hysterical. My first deal that I did, I had already brokered over 1,000 transactions, but I was terrified. I was so scared that I was, going through the housing crash. You just watched so many people lose everything they had. You watched, the guy who I met in a Ferrari that now is pulling up in a Kia. Now new Kias are.
Yeah, the Kias are nice now.
New Kias are incredible, man. Like actually,
exactly.
Yeah. Back then it was a thing, right? Mm-hmm. And so you watched all these people lose stuff. And so when I had my first opportunity come up, and that mentor was going through my head, going, "You need to do it. You need to do it." And I remember I was like, "I'm going to lose everything," and it didn't make any sense. Like what I was buying, I could have lost everything that I bought this house for, and I would have been okay at the time, but I was just petrified that something was going to happen to me. So after that first deal, I was kind of hooked. The second one ended up becoming my house that I still live in to this day. And then after that, I really just duplicated the process. The fear was gone once I understood, okay, this is how this process needs to work. I just did it over and over and over, and I just did it more efficiently, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Makes sense, absolutely. So a few questions about when you started marketing. So I know you said you did websites and things of that nature. So was there any type of funnel that you had, or was it just a website that you built and you use Google AdWords that just kind of attracted people to the website, basically?
Yeah. So when I got into brokerage, I was using AdWords and I was doing SEO, search engine optimization. Mm-hmm. When I got into investing in 12, 13, 14, it was predominantly paid per pay-per-click, PPC, Google AdWords, Bing ads. That was where that's where we focused originally on to find properties, and the keywords. We buy houses, the ones that people are Googling, that they're seeing it on the side of the road, that type of stuff. That was the strategy. Just keep it super simple and have as many conversations as possible. Gotcha.
All right, and so I know when you're saying that you're reading the journal when you're 18 and you're looking at the type of money that could be made, in that, was it that there was in the back of your mind, or maybe someone in your family that had an interest in real estate and that sparked your interest? Or was it, if you would have saw a magazine that said cars are a great business to get into or whatever, would you have gone into anything that made money, or what specifically attracted you to start being an agent?
So great question. And this is actually where I was going earlier with the explanation of my tech background. Was I was actually working for Geek Squad at Best Buy. Mm-hmm. And this guy comes in, and he's I didn't know at the time, he's a commercial real estate guy. And he asked me if I'd be willing to do some private work at his house and help hook up his network and a couple of things. And I was like, yeah, sure. At the time, sorry, Best Buy. Mm-hmm. So, I went to his house, and I was on his computer, and I noticed a check stub, and this check stub was for a substantial amount. It was $40,000 for a paycheck, and I remember thinking to myself, I didn't know people made that in a year, much less a paycheck, right? So it was. I remember just being like, "What happened?" So when I was reading that article, I tapped that memory, so to speak, right? So I was like, that guy was in real estate. This is real estate. Gotcha. That makes sense. That's what I'll do. I wanted to do custom car audio and rims, and I used to work on cars, and that was my thing. Cars would have been great, but it just looked like there was opportunity in real estate.
Gotcha. Makes sense. And so as you're going on in your real estate journey and you tapping into that advice of investing in assets or products and not services, you go from, I think you said that you did wholesaling first and then you did investing, or did you do investing and then wholesaling?
Yeah, we actually did it opposite most people. We went from investing to wholesaling.
Gotcha. Okay. So okay, that's interesting. What made you do that from doing the flips and then going wholesaling?
Yeah, so the hard part about wholesaling is your acquisition engine. Mm-hmm. If you can acquire enough properties at a fast enough rate, then wholesaling is the better of the two choices. And here's why. Both operations require skill. If you're flipping properties, you need skill of construction. If you're wholesaling, you need skill of marketing. Skill of marketing, it was a whole lot easier for us to manufacture, duplicate, replicate over and over and over. When we were trying to do a massive amount of flips, once you get into, you have to manage your marketing really well. Okay, so I know 10 investors nationally that do north of 300 units a year from a flipping perspective. And I can tell you the ones who buy from auction or wholesalers exclusively do much better than the ones who execute their own marketing.
Okay, and why do you say that?
Because you have to pick your poison. You're either managing subcontractors and contractors, or you're managing marketing efficiency. We haven't been able to figure out how do you do both optimally.
Gotcha.
And to where the economics make sense at all scale, Right. So I looked at that. I said, all right, we have this marketing engine and we can put deal after deal after deal on the board. But if we start doing the construction, we have to build all kinds of redundancies. We have to build decision trees. When we're going out to buy a house, I need to know before we ever make an offer, are we flipping it or are we wholesaling it?
Right.
That additional knowledge requires a lot of training burden.
Gotcha.
So when we bring in new team members, it doesn't scale as well. Right? Because now they have to use their intuition to make a decision. Are you wholesaling it? Are you flipping it? And so it makes hiring a lot more challenging. So if you're scaling, if your goal is to scale and do something like with a lot of people and a lot of money going in and out, then I like wholesaling or fix and flip, but without marketing.
Gotcha. Okay. Interesting. So when it comes to wholesaling, as far as when they say, the secret sauce, what do you feel is the secret sauce to marketing? And is there a certain, theory of marketing that you have that you can apply to different businesses? Or what do you feel is that helps you find these discounted properties on a much higher level and an efficient rate?
So, man, I can say a lot here. I would say you start, Eli, with consistency. So everything starts with consistency. So I didn't hit on this. My first 3 months, so I looked like I was 12 when I got into real estate. I had this baby face and no one took me seriously.
Right.
And it took me 3 months of 100 dials a day. This is true. It took me 3 months of 100 a day to set my first appointment. To set my first meeting with a homeowner to list and sell their house to be an agent.
Right.
And then after that, it took like 3 weeks for me to get my second. Fast forward 2-3 years, every other phone call I was able to set an appointment. And so it's all a matter of consistency. You learn and you improve naturally with consistency. So if you force yourself to do the hard work, you're going to start to find the efficiencies in that hard work and you'll start to optimize off those. So what matters? One is consistency in anything you do, whether that's direct mail, whether that's bandit signs, whether that's pay-per-click. It's just being consistent with your methodology. Two is I would have a methodology. So we call them guiding principles. So we set up principles for how we manage pretty much all of our decision making ahead of time. So if let's say I'm gonna do a new direct mail campaign, I expect for that direct mail campaign to produce a certain amount of revenue on its first attempt, on its second attempt, on its third attempt. I have those expectations. If I cannot achieve what I expect, I make the terminate, I cancel it, right? So it's about being intentional and methodical, thinking ahead of time. All right, I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna start doing direct mail. What does success look like? And then quantifying that, starting with the end in mind. What do I want this to do? What do I want this to perform? And then work backwards. Okay. The third thing is looking at your competitors and then beat them. Which that sounds very simple, but you can do it on any medium, any channel. Think about bandit signs. How do you beat somebody at bandit signs? How can you beat somebody at bandit signs? Well, you can put more out. You can put them out more consistently, and you can have different messages. You can have different color bandit signs. All those things will affect your response rate. So that's how I approach marketing, right? So be purposeful, be methodical, have differentiation, be different than your competitors, and start with the end in mind. What am I going to learn here? What do I want to accomplish?
Gotcha. Very nice.
Because all channels work. TV works, radio works, direct mail works, pay-per-click works. It all works.
Uh-huh. So what do you feel works best for you right now?
Search and direct mail.
Direct mail, really? Okay. Gotcha.
But if you asked me these questions a year ago, I probably would have said something slightly different. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So
right.
that's why I'm saying you have to A/B test the direct mail piece. The first time I ever sent direct mail, we sent over. So our first piece had a 0% response rate. This was 12 years ago, and it was for brokerage, so a little different than We Buy Houses. So our first piece had a 0% response rate. We changed that mail piece 30 times, and by the end of all the iterations we made, we were getting over 2.5% response rate.
Nice.
So the devil's in the details, right? Like changing little things can make something work. But to answer your question, today search and direct mail are two. Last year, we do media, so we do TV and radio as well. Last year, radio and television performed really strong for us.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, the two primary things that we do as far as marketing, the two only things now are texting and cold calling. And I'd say about 2 years ago, two or 3 years ago, cold calling was a lot more effective. And that was the main source of what we were doing. But at the time, I was using Mojo Dollar, and I used my single number there. Time passed, and I just noticed the person I was working with, the response rates were just being so much lower than what it was normally. And occasionally we'll get a person, and they're like, oh, I almost didn't answer. And after a while, we just start asking, okay, why weren't you about to answer? And they're like, oh, because it says scam likely. And it's like, whoa, what are you talking about? And so we just went to other methods, and we started looking at other dollars like call tools. And now I'm using batch leads or batch dollar to do the cold calls, and batch leads to do the texting. And so I was getting higher response rates before, but now I'm starting to see that slight decline of responses. And I'm even getting some people saying, oh, I'm not sure why your call says scam likely. And I'm like, well, I have, like, according to the reasoning of their software of being able to choose 5 different numbers, and it cycles through, and I checked the health of the number, and it still says that it's in good health. But for some reason now that's happening. So do you have any maybe insight on that of what we could do with that?
Yeah. So and the 5 numbers, the rotator numbers, are those real numbers, or are those like call rail or something like that? What numbers are those?
Those are the numbers that I bought from Batch Dollar.
Okay. So I would use my cell phone
Okay.
Or so, I mean, I would use whatever the realest number is that gets you through, or I would rotate and change out my numbers more consistently.
Gotcha.
Through batch. Now, I will tell you, the provider can get blocks. From my understanding, they can get blocks of phone numbers marked as spam likely. And so that may be something else, is try changing the phone number block, like the first few digits on the number.
Oh, okay. Did not know that. All right. And as far as
The first 3 digits of the primary number, or it's the last 4 that define the block. I don't know how it goes.
Gotcha. Okay. And do you all incorporate texting in your marketing?
Yeah, we like texting a lot. We're using launch control.
Control. Okay.
Yeah, so we use launch control. We do text outreach for people that have gone cold. Somebody submits a web form and then they go unresponsive. We've all had that happen, and so we'll text them over a period of time, just checking in. Hey, just wanted to see how it's going.
Gotcha.
That stuff.
Gotcha.
But we started saying, "Hey, first name !" That alone has doubled our response rate. That's all we say on almost all of our texts that we send out. We start with that.
And only that.
Hey, first name !
Interesting.
Response rate doubles.
Okay. And that's okay. That's interesting. So this is the type of sauce that I'm talking about, where we're asking what are some of the things that could really improve response rate. So as far as bandit signs, do you do bandit signs as well?
We've done them. We don't do them currently. But I am, what I can say that worked for us is consistency on putting them out more than any. So when we were consistent every weekend and we had a goal, 50, 100, 200 a weekend, bandit signs can work. They're just a lot of work. Right. Messaging, and we tried all kinds of stuff with messaging, and we definitely we struggled getting the messaging right. So
yeah, I'll tell you something that I realized is whenever I did the regular We Buy Houses, I'll get some responses, but not much. And then I just started to hear how other people are saying, just be different, like how you're saying. And so for a while, I did a sign that says Big Papa buys houses, right? And I started getting a lot of spam, but I got deals from that. And the way that people would always start is this Papa? Like, is this Big Papa? Like, yes, it is. This is Big Papa. Like, how's it going? And it was interesting, but that mindset, it started making me realize, like, okay, there's something to just being different in your messaging and standing out, and what type of images could be different. Because whenever you see a regular We Buy Houses sign, you see so many of them that it kind of becomes like a part of the poll. You're not noticing that, versus when you see a funny message or some image or whatever that stands out. It's like I at least remember that, and I know what area it's in.
It's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Definitely. So now moving towards, you explained how you got into real estate, you got into flipping, you done wholesaling, you did your marketing with Myers Home Buyers. Is that what you started the wholesaling under? Did it graduate into like a disposition company? Like, explain that process.
Yeah. So originally the company was called DFW Home Buyers, and DFW Home Buyers fixed and flipped houses, and then we would wholesale off our excess inventory. When we decided to go purely wholesaling, that's when we actually changed the company's name to Myers. So Myers the Home Buyers, and the reason it's named Myers, a lot of people ask this, is because Myers and Buyers rhymes. It was between
I love it.
That, it was between that and Schmitty buys beep homes. So you can fill in the blank there.
There you go. Right.
So we pivoted from DFW Home Buyers to a wholesale team, which was Myers Home Buyers, which was responsible for acquiring and then disposing of the properties. And then we took the dispositions piece, and we've Yeah. So DFW Homebuyers was originally what we were operating and buying fix and flips under, and then we pivoted to Myers Homebuyers, and Myers handled acquisitions and dispositions, but we rolled dispositions now out under the marketplace Trelly. So Myers is exclusively focused on acquiring properties. Trelly is focused on disposing of properties.
Okay, gotcha. And so now we're talking about Trelly, and I think this is I love the business model. Is very genius, and I definitely love it. So, as far as acquiring the properties, well, I'll say more so the disposition of it. Is that your only source of the disposition on Trelly, or do you also have preferred buyers, or you just like streamlining? Let's just get the most we can, basically.
No, we solely rely on Trelly. So what Trelly is, and Trelly's process and the data that we're providing and all of that is basically a mimic off of what we did before we had Trelly. So we have all of our buyers get notified in the same way, but now they get push notifications. We still have a marketing team here in Dallas. So if a property goes on to, in one of our 4 markets right now, we're going to be expanding markets in the near future, but in Dallas, Houston, Tampa, and Jacksonville, if you list a property to sell on Trelly, there's a marketing team that will do physical outreach to let other investors in the area know that your property is available, and make sure that they have the app so they can bid on it. So yeah.
I think it's genius. And anybody who's a wholesaler, well, let me ask this: is it only for Myers? Like, do we have to go through that channel, or how does that work?
No, you can use it for a limited time. There's no cost to using it. You can sign up to sell your properties. Now, you can only sell properties that you actually hold the contract to. You can't sell non-good deals. We'll kick them off the platform. You've got to operate with a certain level of integrity on our platform, and you sign all that in the terms of service. So once you go sign up, you can post your property immediately. Post your property, and then a sales team is going to be activated reaching out to investors. It's actually very straightforward.
I love it. And I think the most important thing that you said is just if you're posting bad deals, it gets kicked off. And that's just the biggest frustration of an investor, because now my wife and I, we're flipping properties, and we'd love to work with wholesalers. We'd love to get a lot of these people started. But when it comes down to it, it's just every day you're just loaded with this trash that comes in your email. And I feel like this app does a great job of vetting out the trash and leaving great deals behind. So that way, now, granted, I know when I saw the deal that came up, at least when it started, it was a deal. And when I got there, unfortunately, I didn't win the bid. Somebody bid it, way above me. But hopefully one of these days I do win a bid and I get a property from you guys. But it's great to know that not only will you at least see the deals, but from a wholesaler perspective, you can actually make more on your deals, it seems like, because you have access to more people.
Yeah, more people. Marketplace theory is that the number is gonna optimize to its most efficient number, and so the wholesaler gets the most they can. The investor buys it at the right value for what the market's bearing. It creates a win-win. So like I said before the call, I really want to pick your brain on all your thoughts, and it's just a matter of we've got to build something that provides everybody value, and so I just appreciate you using it and giving me that feedback.
Yeah. So I guess so before we go beyond it, so. Everyone, I definitely would recommend you guys get on Trelly and at least be familiar with the app. I feel like it's a great app, and it's what year was it created? I think she said 2020 is when it was officially launched.
Yeah, we officially launched in 2020. Started building in 2019. So.
Gotcha. Yeah, I feel like it's a great app, and it's definitely going to be amongst the other must-haves that you have. So of course, the list of must-have apps, you got to have Zillow on your phone, you got to have PropStream, and amongst other apps that you're using. But I definitely feel like Trelly will be that go-to to where if you have a property under contract, you're listing it and you're getting the most for it. And I know in my book, whenever I speak about wholesaling, one of the first steps I tell them, aside from setting up their company and doing all these other aspects, I am a big person of getting your buyer's list first and then going out there and then getting the deal. So that way you're not stuck with a deal. Because I've had that situation happen to me before. When I first started, I had a great deal, but then it's like, you go online, how do you find buyers? You go on Craigslist. And I'm like, okay, I'm calling up all these people on Craigslist. And then I go on Facebook. I'm calling up everybody on Facebook. But it's like I got stuck with something. And this would have taken care of that situation. But I feel like if you are a wholesaler and you don't have a great buyer's list, this would just completely change the game for you because you just have access to so many people, and they'll give you a lot more, for your deal. So I know you say you have some questions for me, and you want to kind of get my story and things of that nature. So
Yeah,
so
man. I want to hear your story, Eli.
Okay.
I want to know, tell me your background. What made you want to get in real estate versus something else? Like, give me that scoop and then how it's going.
Yeah, definitely. So I'll start off going to childhood. My parents are from Haiti. They came here, I guess, 70s or 80s is when they came to the States. They met in Miami, moved to Orlando, and that's where I'm from. And so being immigrants, a lot of immigrants, they understand that in order to get to the next level or to make income, you can't just rely on your job, and especially the job that they were doing at the time. They were, picking oranges and working housekeeping. They understood that wasn't going to be enough for them to survive, and so it started with they knew they wanted to start a business. And one day, I believe it was either my mom or my dad had a chain that they wore to work, and so somebody was like, "Oh, that's a nice necklace. Where'd you get the necklace?" And it was like, "Oh, well, I can get it for you. If I got the necklace, would you be interested in buying it?" He was like, "Oh, yeah, absolutely." And so from there, they're like, "Okay, well, I guess we're about to sell jewelry now." And so from what my mom said, they borrowed some funds from my uncle, and my uncle went to my dad and said, "Hey, here's some funds. I want you to get started." And so what they would do is they would go down to Miami because they were familiar with the different jewelers in Miami. They would buy the jewelry there and they would sell it in Orlando. And so for years, that's part of what the business that they had going. And they also did things like my dad, him and my mom, they always had multifamily properties that they did in Haiti. And so I grew up always watching real estate happening. I would look at the construction process. I would look at all these things happening. And in my mind, it was always, okay, I know I want to end up doing real estate, but I don't have the money. So I'm going to find a different way to get to that process. And so I always thought I was going to go to the NBA. Like nobody could tell me I wasn't going to go. Like it was happening, right?
That was it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like in my mind, it was, I'm going to go to the NBA. I'm going to make this money, and I'm going to use the money from playing basketball to invest in real estate. And whenever I'd ask my dad tips on how do you get started, how do you get this going, he never gave me any real tips that I could use. It was always, I'm like, "Oh, what do I need to do?" "Oh, you need to have money." "Oh, how much money?" "A lot of money." I'm like, "Okay, well, how do you do this business?" "Oh, it's hard." "How hard?" "Oh, it's very hard." I'm like, okay. So he was that type of guy. So, but going back to them selling jewelry and them selling other things like perfumes, colognes, all these different things, it got me used to going in front of people and asking them questions. So I'll go. Sometimes they'll do it on payments. So they're like, "All right, Eli, go to that house, knock on the door, and ask for so and so, and go collect the money." And so, as a kid, you're like 5, 6 years old. It's like, man, I don't want to, go to these people. It's like, dude, just whatever. So I would go out like, "Hey, how's it going? This is, Elijah's son. I'm here to pick up whatever." And so they look at me. It's like, "This 5-year-old kid, why are you coming here collecting money?" But, whatever. So that kind of got me used to just being put in uncomfortable situations.
Yeah.
And then fast forward, parents got divorced when I was a teenager, and as time went on, saw my mom struggling a lot. And it was one of those things to where I'm like, you know what? I got to figure something out. But I didn't know exactly what I was going to do, but it was just like, I gotta do something. So I remember from her job, she was working housekeeping at a hospital. They gave her a gift card to Walmart. And I think it was like maybe $25 or something like that. And I remember we were at Walmart and I saw a candle maker that was there. And I'm like, that's interesting. And so I would look and I saw the candle maker was like maybe $10. And so I'm just kind of looking at that. And I'm like, wait, that's a candle maker. I've never seen one before. Wait, people like candles. I could probably make candles and I could probably sell them. And so I'm like, oh, Mom, do you still have that gift card on you? He's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, I want to get that candle maker and I'm going to make candles. And so she's like, well, how are you going to make candles? I'm like, I'm looking around. I'm like, oh, Walmart has candles. I'll take the wax and then I'll just make candles and I'll sell them. And she was like, okay, like, let's do it. And so she bought the candle maker. I got some candles. And so that night, I just start working. So I took like a screwdriver and I would like take out all the wax and then I'll put it into this candle maker and I put the candle under it and it would put like a new wax in there. So I started off by just taking like a vanilla and a raspberry, chop off like the tops and then mixing them. So you have a half raspberry, half vanilla, and the other vanilla and raspberry, and I would resell those. So I'll peel off the label and I'll just sell those. So a package would be like maybe $10, but I'll sell each candle for $10. And I would just go to school. And I was on a basketball team, so aside from my jersey and shoes, I just have a bag full of candles. And so, I'd walk around and, the hallway would smell like raspberries and, all that stuff. And they're like, oh, what's like, what, like, Eli, what are you doing? What are you selling? So I would wrap it up in towels and I'll go to different lunch tables, roll it out. I'm like, hey, look, I got vanilla, I got strawberry, I got raspberry. Like, what do you want? And so at first people were laughing, but then they realized like, oh, wait, people are buying your candles. Like, oh, this is like, you're not crazy. You're doing whatever.
Yeah.
So that started working for me.
It's actually working.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And so then senior year, I got into a graphic design class. And so with that, they taught us how to make different designs. We were using like laser engravers and so and like dye sublimation machines. So I was able to make like clocks, puzzles, engraved pencils, like whatever. And so I'm like, oh man, I'm about to kill it now. Like now I got candles, I can make t-shirts, I can make whatever. And so
Make anything.
yeah, and so as soon as I got in there, every lesson that we learned, I'm like, okay, so today we're gonna learn how to make like notepads or like the pads that you can like peel off the note. So we learned how to do that. And so I'm like, all right, so now that's another thing I'm gonna start making. Next week we learn t-shirts. All right, now I'm gonna start making t-shirts. And it's like I start doing that. So every morning before school, I would get my orders from before, and I'm like, hey, look, I'm selling each pencil 50 cents a pencil, but I'll get a whole pack of pencils for like $2. So I would start doing that, and I'll say, hey, what do you want? What design? What do you want? Blah blah. Take that, and I would get to school probably like an hour and a half before the teacher would open the door for me, and I would go in, fulfill my orders, and then come lunchtime, I'll go and I'll just start slinging pencils. I'm like, all right, boom, here you go. And so now I'm able to start making some money from there. And so graduating into going to college, I didn't have access to all that stuff anymore. I considered maybe getting a loan or doing something to get those machines. And I asked the guy, I'm like, hey, can I still come back after high school? He's like, absolutely not. You're done with high school. You can't just show up like some dude.
Can't use this equipment.
Exactly. And so went to college. I'm like, well, I got to do something. And so that's when I, on some level, I was kind of, I guess in a way, having like an identity crisis at that point. I'm like, I'm usually the guy that sells, but when I go to college, I'm just another student. And I had that itch. It's like, I got to sell something. And so then that's when I had a clothing line that I made. And so using the information that I got from the graphics class, and my first major that I was going after was graphic design. So I'm learning Photoshop, designing t-shirts. And so I had a clothing line and I did that for a while. And in the back of my mind, it was always just sell enough until you can get to real estate, because that's the end goal. So it's like, just know that none of this is going to be forever. You're going to work your way there. So fast forward, graduate college. One day I'm sitting watching YouTube, and there's a guy named Jay Morrison. He comes up and he's talking about real estate, and he's talking about wholesaling. I'm like what is wholesaling? Because the only way I could think of getting in was being an agent. I'm like, I don't want to be an agent. And so I'm like, how do I get into doing that? And so I just started watching his videos, just kind of, rabbit hole all the way in, saw these different people that was doing it. And I'm like, okay, let me figure this out. So it took me, so that was 2016 when I first saw it and I started marketing. And I would get things like non-refundable deposits, but I wasn't really getting any deals. And so I'm like, you know what? I know I want something to happen, but it's like, I don't know if I have the time to do it. Maybe this is a scam, but I'm seeing these people with checks. I'm looking at all these Facebook groups. I'm like, man, I need to figure that out. So time passed. I end up, so I'm still being an adjuster, end up working for another company. Now I'm a catastrophe adjuster that got me, going all over the country. But you're working 10, 12 hours a day, 7 days a week for, 3 to 4 weeks at a time. You come home, you got 4 days off, and then you're back, somewhere else. And I was doing that for a long period of time, but I would still occasionally try to cold call for like a few minutes or try to do something for a little bit, but it's like I can't get any traction. So I had some money saved, and they said, well, because of the nature of the job, I could move anywhere in the country. And when I was working the storms here in Houston, Hurricane Harvey, I met my now wife because I was on Tinder, just kind of going on there. Yeah. Met her. We ended up, getting married some years later. But I was like, okay, well, I'll at least just move to Houston because I'll be closer to her. So I get to Houston. I have money saved, and it was kind of at that point to where it's like, all right, I'm not married yet. I don't have any kids. If I'm going to jump, I got to jump now because I know with my current schedule, I don't know a way of how to make this work. So that's when I made the jump. And I got a mentorship from a person on YouTube called Jennifer West Grenahan. She would always she would show different tips on how to get into real estate. And so I bought her mentorship, and I wasn't the biggest fan of paying for mentorship at the time or paying for courses or whatever, but I'm like, I need to figure this out. So I paid her, went through the course, and that's when I started making sure that I was doing what I needed to do. So at first I was kind of all over the place. Like I would watch this video and it says to do this. Yep. And it was like, oh, go to Home Depot parking lots and talk to the contractors around there, and maybe you'll find somebody out. So every day I was at a Home Depot parking lot, and I'm like, I'm not getting anything here, and I'm like just jumping all over the place. And so then finally my wife, she kind of was, trying to calm me down. She was like, look, you need to put yourself in the best situation to get in front of the most people possible. And she was like, well, how many people are you talking to in the Home Depot parking lot in a couple hours? So I'm like, maybe, 15 people, maybe that. She was like, all right, well, you'll reach more people if you're just staying home and just calling people. Like, and just she started making me like realize like, okay, it's great to be proactive, but at the same time, I shouldn't waste my time on how I'm doing things. And so with the mentorship of Jennifer and my wife just kind of coaching me, after about a month and a half of quitting my job, that's when I got the first deal from cold calling. And so, so I would, I would pull different lists like code violation, pre-foreclosure lists. And at the time I didn't have, Propalytics or anything. So it's just the list I can create, driving for dollars. This came from a driving for dollars list. And that was a whole story of how that list came about. But got the list, called them month and a half, got the first deal. And from then it was like, oh, this is real. Like the first deal was like $13,000 for the first deal. And when I showed my wife, I'm like it's happening, like it's real. And then a couple months later, got a next deal for like $10,000. A couple months later, another for $8,000, and it just kept going from there. And of course, there is this ups and downs and slow times and better times. Yeah, absolutely. But it has been going great. And when a storm is big enough, I'll still go out and work for a few months. But then like most of the year is geared towards wholesaling, and now we're flipping our own properties from there.
Freaking awesome, man. Congratulations. It's really neat. So, when I got into the space, it was hard to get in. It was hard to get into it. But now, like you're saying, there's so many resources out there. It kind of creates that problem that you were hitting on, which is like some videos say do this and some say do that.
Right.
But man, if you want to learn, the resources are out there you can learn from now. I mean, 20 years ago, it was a very different world. 10 years ago, it was a very different world. And so even now it's definitely out there. And just like you said, right, a month and a half, you put in consistency, and the consistency bred results in anything, right? We suck at almost everything we do for the first time, but getting that consistency in, you get better and better and better. Dude, that's amazing. I want to take some more time later, Eli, and on a call. I'd love to hear a little more granular on that cool. Story, and I have a ton of questions. But dude, that's awesome, man! Congratulations. Awesome. It's you should be proud of yourself.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I know I kept you over the time that we expected, so I'll kind of jump into the end. Or did you have a couple more questions?
No, we're good. No, cool. This has been great, man.
All right, awesome. So. I wanted to get into a lightning round and ask you a few questions and see how you react to that. So if you were to write a book, what would it be about?
Perseverance. It would be about pushing through your downs and your ups, and not letting go of what you really want.
Gotcha. Love it. All right. And number 2, if you could be any animal, what would you be and why?
I go back and forth between a dolphin and a bird, and this is like something I internally argue with. A bird so I could see everything, and a dolphin so I could see what hasn't been seen. So
Gotcha. Okay, gotcha. I'll take that. All right. And what's the last song you downloaded on your phone?
Oh. This is a good one. Let's see. Drake, What's Next?
There you go. Love it. All right. And this one, I thought this was pretty interesting. And it took me a while to figure out which one I would choose. So if you had the option between being able to jump 50 inches in the air or fly, but you can only go up 1 foot above the ground, which one would you choose?
Jump 50 inches in the air or fly a foot above the ground.
Yes.
I would probably jump 50 inches in the air because I could figure out a way to fly if I could get that high.
Gotcha. Awesome. So 2 books that you would recommend someone that's starting off in their real estate journey or just overall entrepreneurship journey. What are 2 books you would recommend?
This is great. 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. Mm-hmm. And I'd say this is mostly geared towards entrepreneurship. That's typically what I pay attention to. And then Good to Great.
Good to Great. Okay.
Good to Great by Jim Collins. That's one of that book changed my life.
Gotcha. All right. And for someone who, and I know we kind of touched on you being a high producer when it comes to being a real estate agent, someone who wants to become a top producer when it comes to being an agent, what is the first step of becoming that person? What are some steps that you would recommend?
So whether it's an agent or whether it's a wholesaler, we scaled wholesaling and flipping very fast because we practice the same principles. Put your head down, do what matters, lead with revenue. So focus on dollar productive activities. There's a saying, and it's something like the enemy of great is good. And it's, and I think that holds true. It's a matter of, putting in effort every single day relentlessly, no matter how you feel about it or whatever the case may be. It's just a matter of taking action and just putting one foot in front of the other and doing it as fast as you can. There's not a oh, if you make this many calls, this works. It's different for everybody. But it's a matter of just staying consistent and not letting go. Because you're going to have, like, once you achieve success, you're going to have bad days. A lot of people think that once I'm rich, everything's going to be easy, and it's not. That's not how it works, right? So it's just a matter of pushing forward no matter what you're doing. I think that's what's helped me become good or great at a lot of the things I do, is I've just focused on what matters over and over and over. I've led with revenue and only done dollar productive activities. It's a trap that, you get real busy working on coordinating a closing, but coordinating a closing doesn't make you any money. That's already, your money earning event has already happened. You only need to focus on the activities that will make you money.
Gotcha.
And it's a contact sport. Usually that just means talking to people.
Gotcha.
So
I love it. Wait, Josh, thank you so much for coming on today. I greatly appreciate it.
Eli.
Yeah, we had a great conversation, man. And again, Trelly is the app that I would strongly recommend you all download right now. And what markets are you guys going into after the ones that you guys have?
Yeah, we're in Dallas, Houston. Tampa, and Jacksonville. We're going to be going to Charlotte, Memphis, Raleigh, Austin, San Antonio, building out the East Coast and the Texas markets.
Gotcha. Okay, awesome. Hey, thank you so much.
Cool.
And I'll put a link in the description below so you all can download it as well. But Josh, thank you, man. I greatly appreciate it.
Thanks. Have a good one. Bye.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to the Your First Steps podcast. Let us know what you thought about this episode by leaving a review. And don't forget to subscribe.